With the release of Star Wars The Bad Batch Season 1 Episode 2 Cut and Run, we finally revisited the clone deserter Cut Lawquane and his family on Saleucami after so much time had passed, and discovered that he had managed to defy Order 66, something only a rare few clones ever managed. Cut was soon able to escape from Saleucami with the help of the Bad Batch after the shockingly fast imperial crackdown on the planet in order to search for a better life somewhere more remote. But there is one major question still remaining: does Cut Lawquane still have his inhibitor chip? So let's find out. Before we get into it, make sure you subscribe for more awesome Star Wars lore content. So, with it being made pretty clear that Cut Lawquane had no idea about the inhibitor chip in his head, or the behavioural modification programming that affected the clones and caused them to turn on their Jedi generals, he obviously didn't execute Order 66. So why not? Well, the first and most obvious answer is that he likely didn't receive the activation message at all, considering he was pretty much off the grid and disconnected from anything related to the Republic for security reasons. If he was discovered by the Republic, he'd be executed for his desertion very quickly. It's possible that Palpatine simply sent the signal through the actual chips themselves, rather than requiring an actual audio signal with the words, "Execute Order 66, but we've seen no real examples of this, so that's probably not the case. The need for an audio cue in order to activate the programming inside of the inhibitor chips is actually backed up by the fact that Tech and Clone Force 99 heard a single repeating command being repeated over and over again on the comms channel, which was specifically execute Order 66. If Palpatine could simply transmit the order through the chips themselves, then he probably would have repeated the command through the chip rather than through the comms channels. So if this is the explanation for Cut Lawquane not executing Order 66, that would mean he still has the inhibitor chip inside of his head. The next possibility is that he did somehow receive the order, but there was simply no Jedi around to kill. This one is definitely possible since he was forced to live on the outskirts of town on a farmstead, away from much attention, but there certainly were Jedi on Saleucami as we know from Revenge of the Sith and the comics. This is still probably not the case since Cut didn't seem to have any clue about the behavioural modification, so when the Bad Batch and Omega brought it up, he probably would have at least mentioned hearing a strange command. Now moving on from that, we have the theories that involve him not having a chip, or having a chip that is damaged due to some incident. We already know that Cut Lawquane deserted from the Grand Army of the Republic at the First Battle of Geonosis. Lawquane was fighting proudly and fiercely for the Republic aboard a gunship when he and his men were attacked by a separatist gunship, badly damaging the vessel and causing it to crash down harshly into the sandy surface of Geonosis. Cut was then forced to watch almost all of his brothers die around him or be horrifically injured, leading Cut to know that he couldn't fight a single day longer in this war, even if it had just begun. Because of this, he fled the battle and deserted the Grand Army, eventually finding his Twi'lek wife Sue, marrying her and taking on her children. And no, for those of you still wondering, these are not Cut's actual children because they were about 7 or 8 years old in the Clone Wars when we first met them, while the clone troopers had only been off of Kamino for about 2 years. Now, because Cut's transport was taken down and crashed into the surface of Geonosis, it's very likely that he sustained at least some form of head injury. It's possible that the crash damaged the chip in his head and made it completely unable to activate, even if the words execute Order 66 were spoken around him. We have seen quite a few clones take hits to the head and still execute Order 66 at the end of the war, but strangely we do see Commander Grey, or now Captain Grey after the retcon to the Canon comic, have his programming and inhibitor chip start to fade away after taking a knock to the head at the hands of Caleb Doom. Initially, Grey and his clone brother Styles are adamant that they must hunt down and execute the young Jedi boy, travelling between the system to hunt him down and kill him. There is no sign of any wavering for either of them. The two clones go to extreme lengths, harassing locals and even brutally beating them to discover the location of the young Caleb Doom. They do eventually capture Caleb and bring him aboard their ship after a hugely fierce hunt, but they leave him a little too unrestricted, allowing him to use the Force to brutally slam their heads into the walls and floors of the ship, injuring them both pretty badly and allowing him to escape. It is at this point where Grey's entire demeanour and personality completely switch, almost back to before Order 66 was delivered to him. Grey then pulls Styles aside and begins to question why they killed Depa Billaba and tells Styles that the kid was right, she was their hero before the words execute Order 66 were spoken. While explaining to Styles why they shouldn't be hunting the young Jedi boy, he grabs his head and somehow comes to the realization that he was put under some kind of spell that compelled him to follow the order without thinking. Grey literally begins to realize that it was almost like he had no will of his own, and that the memories of all the battles he had fought with Master Billaba and Caleb Doom were temporarily blocked. These statements then lead the two to get into a very heated argument, with Styles clearly still under the influence of the chip and the behavioural modification, causing great conflict in Grey. Things get so heated between the two brothers that Styles, who's still under the control of the chip, tells Grey that he's starting to talk like a Jedi traitor, which just isn't comprehensible to Grey. Eventually, Gray becomes so disgusted with his actions while under the influence of the chip that he refuses to fire on Caleb Doom's ship when they get one final shot at killing him, and instead pulls his blaster out and destroys his own control panel, in turn brutally blowing up his ship and taking both himself and Styles to the grave, all because he realized that he had killed his once great friend, and not by his own will. In his final words, Gray says to Styles and the other troopers on board that he has to make things right. Clearly the chip lost its grip over Gray's mind, most likely because of the hard hit to his head. There's no other way it could have faded. Now the part where this happens in the Canon comic was not touched by the Bad Batch, and this part wasn't retconned, so it almost certainly still occurred. This is pretty strong evidence for the damaged chip theory, and I strongly believe that this, combined with not hearing the order at all, will be the reason given for Cut Lawquane not executing Order 66. And his inhibitor chip being damaged also plays right into the next possibility, and where the story of the Bad Batch might go. So another thing that a lot of people have been saying is that Rex must have taken out Cut's chip the day before the Bad Batch arrived on Saleucami, as we know he visited, and would not stop going on about behavioural modification and the chips. Right away this is unlikely, as we don't see any type of scar on the top of Cut's head, like we saw from Rex, Gregor and Wolf, and with the way his hair is, we got a pretty good look. Because of this, I think all signs really do point to him still having the chip in, but it probably being damaged. And this is where the story will tie into Rex's return for the Bad Batch. We know that Rex was trying to warn Cut about the horrible dangers of the inhibitor chips, but Cut just couldn't understand because he was away from the war and most things going on deep inside of the Republic. It's likely that Rex wanted to have Cut Lawquane's inhibitor chip removed as soon as possible, but that's not a very easy thing to do without the right medical equipment, which of course he wasn't going to find on the farmstead, or probably on Saleucami at all. Because of this, Rex probably promised him that they would come together again in the near future, and this time Rex would be able to remove his chip with the proper medical tools. We all remember just how dangerous it was known to be to remove the inhibitor chips from the Clone Wars, so Rex definitely isn't going to take a risk as large as that without the proper medical equipment, especially knowing Cut has a wife and children. The damaged chip theory will probably play a role when we next see Cut in the series, when another attempt at activating the chip might be made by someone high up in the Empire, possibly even Palpatine himself. If Rex hasn't taken out his chip by then, we might see an attempt to get Cut to turn on the Bad Batch by the Empire, but ultimately have it failed because his chip will be damaged and won't be beholden to Palpatine's programming through the command. If Rex tries to remove the chip, there might also be some complications because of the damage done to it. Maybe it has fragmented inside of his brain, making it extremely dangerous to attempt removal. Now one final possibility is that Ahsoka was with Rex when he visited Cut Lawquane the day before the Bad Batch arrived and used the Force to either disable the chip if that's possible, or to help him get it removed in some other way. The timing of this would be a little bit tricky, as the Ahsoka novel says that Ahsoka spent the first year of the Imperial era on Tabesca, working for the Fardi clan in order to survive. But really the Bad Batch episode 2 is only a few weeks after the creation of the Empire at max, so it probably could fit in there. But either way, I'm leaning towards him still having the chip, but it being damaged, and will soon be removed by Rex in the upcoming episodes. Let me know what you think down below. Thanks so much for watching, really hope you enjoyed the video. Cheers guys, hope to see you in the next one.